Hello, thank you for joining this month's Connect with Control M session. My name is Trinidad Gaitan and I'll be your facilitator for this webinar. Today we will demonstrate how to use deploy descriptors, run order, and deploy service and automation API for both Helix Control M and on-prem installations. We have three presenters today from the Control M support team, Octavio Vasquez, Zev Gross, and Erwin Sanchez. We recommend going to full screen mode during this presentation by pressing the full screen button. For any questions you may have during the presentation, please post them in the Q&A pod. We will be addressing your questions at the end of the session. Today we'll demonstrate the topics that you see here, and then after the demonstrations, we'll have a live Q&A session. For our first demonstration, Octavio will show how to promote jobs using deploy descriptors. Octavio, please go ahead.
Thank you, Trini, for the introduction. Here is the agenda for this demo. We will start retrieving a folder from a lower environment. In this case, it will be my test environment. Next, we will define a deploy descriptor in a JSON file. We will validate and test the deploy descriptor. And finally, we will promote the modified folder and jobs to the production environment. To perform a promotion using the Control M Automation API, we need to meet the next prerequisites. We must use the same version of the Control M Automation API on the source and target environments. And the Control M Automation API client must be configured to connect with source and target environments too. Let's start with the demo now. Here is my test environment. As you can see, I have a very simple flow that is composed by a folder and two jobs. The name of the folder is test_folder. If we check the test_OS job, we can see how I'm using the prefix test in the most of the fields within the job definition, like the job name, the server name, the agent, run as user. I also have this control resource with the prefix test, a quantitative resource, and the out condition. If we check the databases job down here, we can see how it also includes the prefix test in several of its fields. But the most important field here is the connection profile with the name test_db_cp. So I want to promote this job flow from my test environment to my production environment. Now let's take a look at my production environment. Here is my production environment. As you can see, currently I don't have any folder named prod_folder. Can click the filter and no results are returned. So once I promote the folder from the test environment to prod, we will be able to see the folder here. Now, let me show you how to retrieve the folder and its jobs from the Control M test environment using the Control M Automation API. Here is a session to my Control M Enterprise Manager test server. As I mentioned in the prerequisites, we need to have the Control M Automation API client configured to connect with the source and the target environment. As you can see, I have the two environments, test and prod, configured for my Control M Automation API client. Currently, the active environment is test, as we can see. Let's validate that I'm able to log in on the test environment using the API client. The login is successful. So now I will submit the command to export the folder, the test folder, to a JSON format. Here is the command to export the folder to JSON format. As you can see in the search query, I'm specifying that the Control M server name is test, and for the folder, I'm specifying the name of my test folder. Let's run the command. In the output, we can see the folder and the jobs in JSON format. Let me show you. Here is the folder structure. And here starts the structure for the test OS job. And down here, we can find the test databases job. So here are all the values of the jobs parameters, and these are the values that we want to change at the time when we perform the promotion. As you can see, the most of the values have the prefixes test, and I want to replace that prefix with the prefix prod. In order to perform the promotion, I will need to have this folder and jobs in a JSON file. Therefore, I'm going to rerun the command, but this time I will redirect the output to a file. The next step is to create a deploy descriptors file. Let me show you how it looks. Here is the content of my deploy descriptors file. In this file, we are going to indicate which are the parameters that we are going to modify during the promotion and which are the values that we will set on these parameters. On the first section, I changing the Control M server name from test to prod. The next section will replace the folder and job name prefixes test per prod. This step is the one that is finding the test string and replacing it with prod. Next, I will do the same with the host. Same situation for the run as user. On this section, I will modify the condition to reflect prod instead test. And finally, I will change the Control M for databases connection profile. I will replace also the test prefix per prod. Basically, these are the 5 modifications that the deploy descriptors file will do during the promotion. Once we have defined our deploy descriptors file, we can validate that we have used the correct syntax by running the next command, CTM build and the name of our deploy descriptors file. Let's run it. As we can see in the output, our deploy descriptors file is valid. So our next step is to simulate the promotion. This step is very useful because it will not deploy the jobs on the production environment right away. It will show us how the folder and jobs will look after applying the deploy descriptors file. Let's run it. So the syntax is CTM deploy transform the name of my test folder in JSON file and the name of my deploy descriptors file. Let's run it. So here in the output, we can see how the name of the folder has been changed from test underscore folder to prod underscore folder, as we expect. The Control M server has been also modified from test to prod. The prefix of the job name has been changed. The host has been also fixed from test underscore agent to prod underscore agent. The run as user looks correct now with prod. Also, the control resources have been updated. I have here a control resource and a quantitative resource. And the conditions have been fixed also for my prod environment. Down here, I have the databases job where I was also changing the job name, the agent, and as you may recall, the connection profile here also. So my deploy descriptors file is working as expected. So now I can proceed to deploy the folder on my production environment. To deploy the folder on the production environment, I will basically reuse the same command that I used before for the validation, But this time I will remove the transform flag because now I really want to deploy the folder. And with the -e flag, I will indicate the target environment where I will deploy the folder. In this case, will be my prod environment. Let's run the command. Okay, so the output tells us that the deployment has been successful. We have one folder and 2 jobs deployed. Let's see how the folder and jobs look in our production environment via the workload automation client. Here is my production environment. So as you may recall, I used to don't have any folder named prod_folder here. But now that we have deployed using the Control M Automation API, if I check the filter again or click refresh, I can see that the folder exists now. Let's open it. And we can see that all the prefixes test has been replaced by the prefix prod as we expected at folder and also at the job level. Let's go back to our presentation to check some useful resources. So here's the link to the page of our documentation where we talk about the deploy descriptors. This page is very, very useful because it contains several different scenarios that could be useful for you and also explain you how to define the modifications in the deploy descriptor file. Also, we have the link to a very useful video where we perform another example of how to promote jobs from one environment to another. Thank you very much for your attention, and we will go back to Trini for the next presentation.
Thank you, Octavio, for showing how to promote jobs using deploy descriptors. In our next demo, Zev will show how to order jobs via command line with automation API. Zev, please go ahead.
Thank you for that introduction. I will cover Run Order API usage, provide an example, and then talk about what security authorizations are required to use Run Order API. Run Order API enables you to order and run jobs that were deployed in Control-M. The returned run ID handle allows you to retrieve the list of jobs that were added to the active environment as a result of this order. The link to the documentation for Run Order is provided below. This API supports all the functionality that's available in the order dialog of the EM client. Let's look at the order dialog in the monitoring domain and go over all of the options provided. The order dialog in the monitoring domain can be found here. The general options have ignore scheduling criteria, run as independent flow, and hold. The additional options allow you to select run date, which goes together with the scheduling criteria, or the first option. The third option are variables. Let's talk in more detail on these options. Ignore scheduling criteria when unchecked. This option will evaluate the scheduling criteria specified in the scheduling tab of the job definition. If the job is scheduled to run on the run date specified, the job will be ordered to the active environment. When selecting wait for the run date, the job remains in the active environment until the run date arrives before it is eligible to run. Without the wait option, the job is eligible to run immediately. Let's cover now run as independent flow. When checked, allows you to order the same folder several times, ensuring that the condition names are unique for each order. This uniqueness is generated by the run requests by adding a unique identifier to the condition name. Let's take a look. Here you see two folders. The first folder is ordered by the new day, and then this folder was ordered manually. As you can see, 56 is added to each job. Conditions that are created and consumed in the folder get the unique identifier. Conditions that are referenced from outside the folder do not get the unique identifier. Now let's cover the hold flag. When checked, the hold flag puts all the jobs and folders ordered in a hold state, and jobs cannot run until they are manually freed. We have two more items to cover. One is variables, and the second item is when you order one or more job directly instead of ordering a folder. When you do that, then you have the option of putting the jobs into a brand new folder, a standalone, that means without a folder, a recent folder, the folder that was last added, and a selected folder where you specify the order ID. With variables, I'm going to add 3 variables. There are different types of variables. There are system variables, which can override a given field in the job, and then the local variables, which are just added to the job and can be used at runtime. Application. I'm going to call it connect. Application group. We'll call it order. And the third variable is just a local variable. I'm going to call it my GRP, my group. We're just going to go ahead and order entire table. The order was successful, and now we'll go take a look. Here's our new table. As you can see, the condition has a new extension. The job has additional variables that we added. Application is called connect. Application group is order. So now we will verify that up here. Application is connect. Application group or sub-application is called order. And it's the same for every single job and the folder. Okay, so now we will repeat exactly the same thing, but this time using Automation API. Moving to the EM environment. Automation API utilities come with Enterprise Manager. Here's the usage of the utility. We can check the environment that this utility is connected to by doing CTM env show. And here you can see that the CTM utility will be sending all the requests to that endpoint using the user EM user. You can see the syntax of the CTM run. And you can see on top, we need to specify the data center, the folder, optional jobs, optional mainframe library, and then configuration parameters. So let's take a look at the syntax of that configuration file. We'll go back to the documentation. And here's an example of the JSON file for that input. And you can just copy that file and modify for your own needs. I've prepared one in advance to save time. Here you have an array of variables. Our application, sub-application, and internal variable. The hold flag is true. Independent flow is true. Ignore criteria, so on and so forth. Let's run the command. Here's our folder configuration file. we can view the action result file using the run ID. If you use REST, then you can access directly the actions file. To see the list of jobs that were ordered, you can use CTM run status. And here is the list of all the jobs that were ordered. Total of 17 jobs were ordered. Each job has a small set of details. To see the entire job, you can use another command, CTM run job get identifier of the job. So you have the name of the data center and the order ID. This job has a lot of information. Here you can see the variables that were added. And here you can see the application was changed to connect, and also the sub-application was changed to order. That concludes the second part of this presentation. The last part, we will review the authorizations that are required to perform the run order. Now let's cover authorizations required to use Automation API run order. We're looking at a set of roles that we have. So the first thing is to be able to run Automation API, and that is set over here, interfaces access. Once you've selected that option, the next set of authorizations are in the planning domain. There are two sections here, the folder and job authorizations and run as authorizations. So within the folder and job authorizations, there's an option here to do for run. And this option needs to be selected. Similarly, run as also needs to be defined. So for your jobs and folders, the run as field and the agent need to be in the list here. So once you've allowed folder authorizations for run, and you've also specified the run as value and the agent, then you should be able to order and use the CTM run order command to order using Automation API. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you for joining. And now back to Trini.
Thank you, Zev, for showing how to order jobs via command line with API. For our final demo, Erwin will show how to use API to deploy integration job types. Erwin, please go ahead.
Today we will be looking into how to deploy Control-M integration jobs using Control-M Automation API. We will also look at the scenario where, as an administrator, I need to use Automation API to deploy Control-M integration jobs types to a Control-M agent and how to remove them from the agent. In this presentation, we will show an example using Control-M integration jobs for on-prem, but the steps are similar to Helix Control-M integration jobs. We will have these links available in the link section. Here are the prerequisites: Control-M 921 or later, Control-M Automation API configure on your environment, and depending on the plugin you would like to deploy, you will need to download it from the EPD site and place it on the Control-M Enterprise Manager server. Okay, here is a helpful link in case you encounter the return code 6 issue when performing the deployment. Now, moving on to the process. For this demo, we are going to deploy Control-M for Informatica CS. On the integration page for each plugin, you'll have detailed information on the plugin, their compatibility, and the steps on how to deploy, configure, and remove them. Okay, let's have a look at my Control-M environment. Here in the Control-M web, we can see on the job type list that there is no Informatica CS listed. All right, let's switch to my Control M Enterprise Manager server machine. And we can see that it has the latest version of the API already installed. And if we go to the download folder that I have here, we can see that I already downloaded the Informatica plugin from our EPD site. Now let's move the zip file to the auto deployed folder as per the instructions. Okay, once moved, let's double check on the auto deploy folder that the file is now there. All right, let's switch to my Control M agent. This one is version 9.21.100. And let's validate that we have Control M Automation API environment configure. We can do that by running the command CTM environment show. And we can see that we have an environment set. And let's run the command CTM session logging, and we can validate that we received a token successfully. To deploy the Informatica CS plugin, we're going to use the command CTM provision image, and then we put the name of the plugin shown in the integration page. And for the extension, we're going to use .linux because this is a Linux machine. If you were deploying the plugin on a Windows machine, you will use the .windows instead. Okay, the provision command will show the process that is performing. And once it's done, it will display a message saying that the provision image succeeded. Okay, let's go back to the Control M web and check out the job type list. Now we can see the Informatica CS plugin available on the list. And if we switch to the configuration page, the new Informatica CS plugin is available, and it lists the Control M agent where we just deploy the plugin. Now, let's proceed to remove the plugin from these Control M agents. Each integration plugin has a unique plugin ID and is listed at the end of the integration page, and we will need this ID to remove it from the agent. Okay, going back to the Control M agent that we just installed the plugin, we're going to remove it by first let's navigate to the following directory. So CTM, CM, AI, exe. And once in the directory, we're going to run the command remove underscore plugin and the plugin ID that we grab. And after a few seconds, a message plugin successfully removed will be displayed. If we go back to the configuration page, and after a couple of minutes, if you refresh the page, we can see that now there is no Control M agent using the Informatica CS plugin as it was showing before. All right, this concludes my demo. We will go back to training.
Thank you, Erwin, for showing us how to use API to deploy integration job types. All right, everyone, that concludes our session for today. On behalf of Octavio, Zev, Erwin, and the entire Connect with Control M team, thank you for spending some time with us today. We look forward to you taking advantage of these features in your environment. Stick around for the Q&A session where we will take your questions. But first, you can learn more about the BMC education course, Fundamentals Administering, by clicking on the link in the link section below, or you can visit the bit.ly link you see on the screen. Your feedback shapes our future webinars. We would appreciate if you will take a moment and answer a few questions for us in the survey that you will receive later today. You can find Control M on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Links for each can be found in the links section below. You can watch previous webinars on the Control M channel on YouTube. Today's webinar will be posted there within a couple of days. Let's take off the Q&A. As a reminder, you can enter your questions on the Ask the Questions section at any time.